Okay, moving on. Michael Wilson. Hey, Bill, I've been in a college class where we have been asked to write a debate paper on free speech versus safe spaces on college campuses. As a longtime fan of yours, I'd like to hear your opinion on this subject. I'm one of the few arguing for free speech. Oh my God. Our professor has been great at making sure he doesn't voice his own political position so as not to influence the classwork. Thank you for your time. I'll give you my straight off the cuff, honest answer here, Michael. My gut reaction is let these ignorant, stupid bastards have the entire so-called university system. Just get out of there and let them have it. I really mean it. I am so disgusted with universities now that I just think we need to start thinking of them as mental institutions and treat them accordingly. That's certainly what their output is worth, and that's what their output consists of. I just want to treat them like mental institutions and get the smart people out of there and learn online and just do it. Find a way. Or everybody goes to, Hillsdale's College, whatever. It's something. I didn't go there, by the way, but I approve. I just am so sick of it. I'm so disgusted by it. I really think that I know. The more they go towards the safe space over free speech thing is simply means that their confrontation with the real world will be prolonged, and the more it's prolonged, the more painful and psychologically destroying it's going to be for them. And I say, good. Now I'm at the point where I say, good. I hope you all have nervous breakdowns. I really do. I hope every single one of you social justice warriors, every single one of you Antifa cowards, I wish every single one of you has a major nervous breakdown when you finally get out of a place where you can bully people who basically think like you. The reasons universities put up with this is because they agree with it. They agree with it. Sometimes you hear people saying, well, maybe we created a monster. Yes, you did. It's your monster, and now you can live with it, and it can eat you. And I'm going to enjoy watching it. In answer to your question, I will answer your question. But my personal emotional response is, I just don't care. Now, TG Gecko says surrendering territory, great plan. That's one way to look at it. One way to look at it is also cut your losses. You've got a lot of chips on the board, and you're holding a pair of twos. So when is it time to get out? You're not going to win this fight. You're not going to turn this around in terms of like, gee, let's have conservative speakers. It's not going to turn around. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is try and get an education into the heads of the people who understand this stuff, have some kind of fundamental understanding of it. It's the most disturbing thing, and when I say it's hopeless, I don't think the future's hopeless, but I think universities are rapidly becoming the whalebone corsets of the 21st century. They're the wooden wagon wheels of the future. They're just becoming absolutely obsolete. And by the way, there's no reason for them anymore anyway. There really isn't. Every day, more and more information, quality information, is available on the internet. And when I think about how much of an education I've given myself versus how much I got, I am really quite shocked about it. So that's my emotional reaction. Now, my reaction to if you're going to write a paper about this, I think maybe what I would do is say something like, if we're even having this debate now, how long will it be before we're not even allowed to debate the subject? We're just even debating the idea of free speech is forbidden. And who forbids it? And why? And why are they forbidding it? What are they so afraid of? And what makes you think you have a right to be safe? What makes you think there's any place in the world that's a safe space? You drive home on the freeway, or you drive home on a decent sized road. I don't remember who pointed out. It might have been Tony Robbins who stole one of my videos, basically verbatim. But you are driving down the road at 60 miles an hour. Other cars are driving down the road towards you at 60 miles an hour, and you're protected by a yellow line on the road, a little piece of paint that thick. What makes you think you're safe? Nobody's safe. And what makes you think you deserve safety? And what makes you want safety? Who wants safety? Whose life is safety number one? Who? These losers, these weenies, these absolute little creeps. And they can basically, I think they can just implode on themselves. I'm going to fight like the devil for free speech in terms of my free speech. But when the university campus faculty and the police department are on the side of the fascists, then it's time to leave that place. This is genuinely where I am now. It's just time to leave. I don't mean you have to drop your degree, Michael. I know you've got a lot invested and a lot of time and so on, but I'm telling you, it's just the fact that you could say that they are even asking the question, and the fact that you are, what would you say? I'm one of the few arguing for free speech. We are going to reap what we sow as a culture and as a country. That's bad. And that same dynamic of reaping what we sow is going to apply to conservatives and to progressives, and that's good for us and much worse for them. Yeah, like Dave Waldman's answer, and it's a much better answer than what I just gave. He just said free speech is not up for debate, period. Perfect. I wish I'd thought of that. It's a hell of a, it's the best argument I've heard. That's exactly how you handle it. That's you just won the internet, Dave. That's the best thing I've ever heard about it. That's really the way to go, isn't it? And not even just get frustrated about it and say, well, you can have your, no. I'm going to say what I want to say, and too bad for you. If you don't like it, too bad. Everything you say is offensive to me. Everything you say and you believe is just deeply offensive to me. So I want you to shut up. Maybe this is the way to go. Maybe the way to go at it is to say, okay, so we're going to have safe speech and safe spaces and so on, and we're going to determine that certain things we're not allowed to talk about. But I find all of your politics to be deeply offensive to me and to many other people on this campus. Deeply offensive. So we don't want to hear any more about Bernie or socialism or Hillary or anything. Don't want to hear any more about liberal politics, nothing. I find that deeply offensive. It threatens me. It doesn't make me feel safe. Give them the whole thing in their face and make sure you're not the only person in the class who does that. And then find out what happens. If likely they will say, well, you're all white people, it doesn't matter, in which case you say, well, I don't need to be in school with racists, and you just leave. There comes a point when where you really just have to kind of, here's what it is. A building's on fire and you see the smoke and you run in there and you try to get the people out, and then you run back in and you try to get, I'm not talking about professional firefighters, you try, or them as well for that matter. You try to get the people out, you try to get the cats out, you try to get everything you can, but there comes a point when the fire in that building becomes so consuming that now the firemen simply have to stand back and watch it burn. And that's where I am with this thing. And these idiots, the reason they don't understand why we arm ourselves to the teeth is because they don't understand what they're doing when they talk about having a debate about whether or not we should have free speech. I say, this is, I'm kind of inventing this as I go along, but really, here's my point. If colleges, if university is designed to open your mind and give you new perspectives, which it certainly did for me, And the people in the social justice warrior movement are so determined to prevent that from happening, then they are agitating to come out of college stupider than they went in. And I don't think we can stop that anymore. I don't think we should. They are going to come out of college with their degrees in all of these absurd subjects, and they are going to expect the world to fall down for them. And it's not going to happen. Because no matter how much, here's your consolation, Michael, the real world is not like a university, and it never has been. I admit that the divergence between a university environment and the actual environment is greater now than it was certainly at any time in my life. But universities have always been places where this kind of silliness goes on. I don't know if I mentioned this on a show previously, but I did have this thought because, needless to say, I've been thinking a lot about this whole thing and Antifa, all these idiots and social justice warriors and so on. And it occurred to me not too long ago, maybe a month ago, I was talking with Natasha about this, I think. I said, I never really thought about it until just now. But when you get right down to it, we are sending humans to college to learn highly complex things, and we're sending them at the most stupid point in their lives. This is kind of nuts. It is without question that this is the stupidest time in their lives. This is as dumb as they're going to be when they're in college. When they're little kids, they're learning and they're excited about things, and and they want to learn everything. Maybe you get them into high school and they start getting a lot more surly about it, or they don't want to learn or anything, but they don't have the personal power to stop it. By the time you get to college, you feel like you have, and in this particular case you do have, you can intimidate these people, intimidate the faculty, intimidate everybody, and it's their way of controlling their little world. And this is what teenagers do. Teenagers are the stupidest people in the world. And I'm speaking from experience here. And so is every single one of you. And the main thing that makes teenagers so stupid is the absolute inability to recognize the fact that every single adult that has ever lived says, I was exactly like you, and you are wrong about this, and you are going to realize you're wrong about it. So this is it. If I sat there and said, you guys are so narrow-minded, you think you know so many things, but you don't, you're so stupid, and you're going to change so many of your opinions, they would say, no. I said, well, yes, the world doesn't work the way you think it will. And they say, well, that's because people like you gave up, because people like you lost your idealism and so on, but we're different. I said, what's really remarkable about that? What? That's exactly what we said. That's exactly what our fathers and mothers said. That's exactly what our grandparents said, what our great-grandparents said. Every single one of them said that to their parents. We're different than you. We're more noble than you are. We've got more commitment than you do. We're unique. God, I hate these people. I just hate them. To sit there, and I have had a few experiences that maybe you haven't had. I've had to stand there, and talk for 45 minutes and just watch people just rolling their eyes and giggling and stuff. They don't know who was in World War II. And what's worse than that is they're convinced that it doesn't matter that they don't know anything. They're convinced that nothing that they don't know, that grammar was horrible, although that's not going to be a problem in the future, bad grammar, because no one's going to know what good grammar is. They don't know what they don't know. And they're just simply, this is the first time that I'm ever aware of, it's not true, come to think of it, because since some of us read history and even smaller number of us understand it, during the Middle Ages, students were basically terrorists. In medieval colleges throughout Germany and France, to a lesser degree England, students would run riot. They would demand this and they would demand that. And if somebody punished a student, and I'm talking about the 1400s, 1500s, if somebody punished a student, then the students would riot and so on. They're the worst possible people in the world. And they're, without question, they're at peak stupidity just at the time we send them into college. And what we're seeing now is the result of natural selection downward. For 3 generations now, we've taken the most stupid, closed-minded people and given them the kind of education where the only future they have is to go into a university and teach people how to be even more stupid and closed-minded. So, Eric says Eric Blake says, what you're saying, Bill, is you hate your old self. I do. I despise many of those moments, and I was one of the relatively open-minded ones. Just the arrogance of it, it's almost like gluttony in a way. They're just so obesely stupid, these young people. And they don't get to hear anything different. And that's the difference between them and me. I went into college as completely convinced I knew everything as everybody else does. But when I went to school, I got to hear different opinions, and it changed my mind. But these people are not going to have that experience. I got to tell you, Michael, I would just say, do what some of those suggestions are. Either say, free speech is not up for debate, period, and leave it at that. And finish your degree. Obviously, I'm sure you've got a lot of time and money invested in the degree, but you will find every day more and more that there is superb education out there on the internet, and it's free. And if you want to get a really superb education, you can buy some of these video things or memberships at various websites and so on. And that's not free, but compared to the cost of a university, it's terrible. I really think that there should just be a couple of, something like, I don't know, Phoenix University or something like that. People talk about online degrees. Listen, if you're applying at a major law firm, or you want to be maybe a CEO of a high finance company, you may then need something like the master's degree from Harvard or Yale, which used to mean something, but it doesn't mean anything now, and everybody knows it. So maybe you just need the piece of paper. I don't know. I don't have one. I'm a college dropout. And I've never hired anyone, and I don't know anyone who's hired anyone on the basis of what school they went to. I've never seen it happen. I've never, ever, ever seen a case of somebody saying, this person is more personable and they're brighter. They certainly seem to be harder working. They're more polite and they're more disciplined. On the other hand, this person went to Yale and had people go, this person is surly, lazy, rude, and mean, but they went to Yale. I've never heard anybody ever pick Yale. I just don't think it happens. I don't. Certainly in entertainment, it doesn't matter. So I think we're not far away from a world where there is going to be some kind of a test administered. And I pray for this world where you will simply be given a rigorous test, and you will either pass that test or fail. And if you pass that test, then you have the certification. If people need certification, and most people don't, but if you do, you do. I want to know. I've been curious for quite a long time now. I want to know what kind of college degrees, how many and how advanced, could this college dropout achieve nowadays? If I had to pass the finals for either the bachelor's degree or the master's degree, maybe even in some cases the PhD degree, how many degrees could I simply pass now? I'll bet it's quite a few. I have a fairly high level of confidence that I could pass a PhD exam for history. In fact, I'm utterly certain I could do that. Utterly certain that I could have a doctorate in history. No question about that at all. And I think I could probably get a pretty decent degree in English. And I think there's some chance I could get a decent degree certainly could pass the bachelor's degree in astronomy. There's no question about that. And likewise in a number of other areas. I'll bet you anything I could hang 5 degrees on my wall if all I had to do was simply pass the same test that the people who were in the university for 4 years would. I bet you 5, and it may surprise me and be a lot more than that. So, the world is changing, and it's changing for the worse, and it's also changing for the better. So, Michael, I'm sorry if that answer disappointed you, but the idea that the thing is even up for discussion is so disgusting and repugnant to me that it really does become a case of at what point do you realize we're bailing as fast as we can, but this ship is going down. And look, this is an interesting phenomenon because I know it sounds so depressing. But the fact is, if you look at history all the way back, history is the history of what was once normal becoming exceptional and societies being weighted down by the stupidity generated by their own success. That's basically the human wheel of doom. I don't know how many times it's happened, 15 times? I could probably list 15 times it's happened. People get together, they work hard. All of the things that we consider to be virtues are virtues for a reason. They're courageous, they're hardworking, they're loyal, they're brave, they're prepared to sacrifice themselves, but they're not eager to. They're disciplined, they're filled with the character that comes with a fair amount of pain and suffering and work and all the rest of it. And these people build miraculous things. And then the children of those people at least had the influence of them upon them, but the children of the children may be a shred of it, but the great-grandchildren know nothing about it. They just assume that every single little miracle around them is absolutely automatic, and they get dumber and dumber and dumber. And that's when people like you come in, Michael. This is the big message in the message. This is the remnant message. As the country gets stupider, people like you become more and more valuable. And again, I know this is not what I would have said even a year ago, but I would, if you want my from the heart advice, Michael, I would say put as little effort as you can into it. Get the stamp on the paper. Don't waste your God-given energy and ambition fighting with idiots. If they want to live in this world, let them live in it. And every day, the value of a university education becomes more and more meaningless. Every day. University and college used to be something people aspired to. Used to look up at them and say, oh, that person's well-educated and they speak well and maybe they make money and maybe they learn discipline and they can talk about important things like mathematics and engineering, and maybe they can build things that I can't build, or maybe they know about what happened in the past. And a college degree was something that people looked up to. Now, it's something that people look down on, and that's appropriate. That's the output of the universities now. Used to be, my wife Natasha tells a story of, and this is certainly not the only time it ever happened, but it's a story kind of human heartbreak, but it's so easy to understand. She was close to a man who was a real expert at vodka, of all things. I mean, an internationally known expert, a magazine editor on the subject and so on. And from him, she heard the story about this small little distillery, I guess you'd call it, that was making the best vodka in the world. Just extraordinary. And it was selling for a good price because people who could tell the difference between bad vodka and good vodka understood that this was exceptionally good stuff. And the reputation that a bottle of this had got to be higher and higher and higher. And as that particular business got more and more valuable, came a point, this was back before Russia really recovered from all the criminalism that dogged them right after the fall of communism. This brand of vodka became more and more and more valuable because of the quality put into it. And at that point, a few people show up basically with guns and say, here's a little money. You can either have the little money and go, or you can stay here and we'll kill you, but we're taking this business. So that's what happened. So he took the money and got out. That's what anybody would do. Is what I would do, certainly. And so what happens? Well, these murderers and bastards don't know a damn thing about making vodka. And the most important thing is that they don't care. They know they don't know how to make any vodka. It doesn't matter to them. What they do is they start maximizing profit because this vodka had a high price because it was quality vodka, and they start making it with junk, the cheapest stuff they can find. And the quality goes through the floor, but it takes a while for it to sink in. People used to think this was really high quality. And then over time, they realized what happened. They don't know. But during that time, these people made out like bandits. And that's basically what's happening with our college and education system in America now. Used to be something you could look up to. And then somebody came in and changed the formula. And now it's crud. And now it's got a reputation for crud. And that reputation for crud is going to continue to grow. And it's going to get cruddier and cruddier. One of my favorite words of all time, by the way, crud. It's such a perfect word. It's so useful. And it's going to get cruddier and cruddier and cruddier until finally the society that's going to generate these losers is going to be looking around and they're going to say, okay, well, colleges have produced these social justice idiots who are terrified of everything. They're 50 years old and they're crying because they see a billboard they don't like. These grown children, I don't want anything to do with them. Who got themselves their own education? Who was outside of this herd of morons? That'll be guys like you. So, remnant, it's a hard thing to watch, standards falling. It's a very hard thing to watch, things coming apart like that. In fact, it's probably the hardest thing for somebody who's deeply committed to ideas and things that they believe in. It's horrible to watch these things being chiseled away in front of your eyes. And I've come to realize that my job and your job and everyone who's watching this, their job, I've come to realize their job is not to stop this or turn it around because they can't, because you can't. Our job is to make sure that enough of this survives so that when this fire burns itself out, when the stupid have created so much stupidity like safe spaces that everything falls apart, then the people who will be left in the middle of these lost adult children will be people who know how to think, people who know how to build, people who can work together, people who are worthy of trust. Needless to say, people who are armed. All the rest of it. It's a gift. It's a Fabergé egg, and it's our job to make sure that, because it's the same egg, by the way. It's the same egg from 50,000 years ago. It's not a new one. It's the same egg. It got passed on to us, and it's our job to pass it on to other people. And if the rest of the world gets rockier and rockier, then that's our particular curse. Neither you or I, Michael, had to go off and fight in World War II or any of that horror, and we didn't have to be there at Canny, and we didn't have to be there at the Somme or any of the rest of it. So that's been very nice, and I get to talk about computer games, and I'm not at any risk, and I've never been shot at, and all the rest of these aberrations of life here on planet Earth. So that's the good news. And the bad news is you have to watch this thing come apart. And so you can look at that as a tragedy, or you can look at it as an opportunity, or you can look at it as your duty, your duty. You don't know why you're here watching this show. Nobody who's watching this show knows how they got here. And the reason I know that for an absolute fact is because the guy doing the talking has no idea how he got here. So, we're talking to each other now because a very small number of us have, for one reason or another, it's either just random chance or the grace of God, one or the other, have been given the vision to understand right and wrong and the mental ability to preserve all of the things that our entire species has worked so hard for so long. So, yeah. If we were going to take every single hardworking person, I would give up. I've said this before, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I don't want to live, and I won't. I'm not going to move to South America. I'm certainly not going to live in the jungles or Mexico. I'm not going to move to Africa. I'm not going to move to Asia. But if they could just give us one state, pick one, pick a Kansas, Arkansas, just pick one. Be nice if we had a seaport. And just one place where you had to basically pass not so much an IQ test as an aptitude test in order to get in there. Just give us one state, and that state would be the most powerful nation in the world in 20 years or less, 10 probably. So, did I say revenant? I meant to say remnant. Troy, Stephen's coming. If I might have said revenant, I meant remnant. If you really want a pocket education, Michael and everybody else as well, go find an essay called Isaiah's Job by Albert Nock, N-O-C-K. It's profoundly good. It was given to me when I started writing this stuff back in end of 2002, early 2003. I think it was Kim and Connie Dutois sent it to me. Albert Nock, Isaiah's Job. He basically says Isaiah was called by God to go and preach in this town of heathens surrounded by social justice warriors, wearing robes and sandals like they do today. And Isaiah, God's calling, so Isaiah says, "Yes, Lord, I'd be happy to do it." And then God says to Isaiah, "But before you go, you should know no one's going to listen to you." And Isaiah says, "You're not going to be drawing big crowds. You're not going to be changing minds. You're just going to go and say these things that I want you to say." And Isaiah said, "Well, good idea, Lord. But could you let me know why I'm going? If I'm not going to be heard, if you're sending me here to spread your word and no one's going to listen to me, why?" Basically, God said to Isaiah, there is a remnant. There is a small group of people out there, a very small group of people, and you will be speaking to them. And you can't recruit them, and you can't sift them. You can't even really find them. They'll find you. But your job is to speak to the remnant. Because if one person in 10,000 hears it and gets it, that's all we need. And once you get to that place, you begin to look at things a little differently and just begin to think, okay, it's beyond, there's a difference between prevention and perseverance. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say prevention and it'll come to me. they'll come to me eventually. I had a fun dinner with Mr. X last night, who haven't seen too much of lately, but formerly held the flaming swords outside the door of the Stratosphere Lounge here. And he was talking about a lot of things that were very, very interesting. None of which I can remember right at this moment. It'll come to me, but the question is when. Maybe if I move on and do another question. This will be question number 3. What the hell was it? That was so good.